listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Well, good Monday morning, everyone. Those are words you don't hear often, aren't they? Oh, my. I want to thank you for joining me. Yes, I am unsupervised once again. And, it's kind of funny. I had a couple folks contact me on social media and say, hey, where's Myra? We miss hearing her. Well, I miss her being here too. She, I might as well tell you. She's spending a little bit of time with her parents. Her mother was in the hospital, and she went up there to take care of them while her mother is recovering, however you want to say that, the best she can. And hopefully she will be back, probably not this week, but hopefully first of next week. So, if everything goes well, then she will be here. If things go bad, she might not be. But I will keep you updated with that. Very quickly, something in the news that popped up. A senior living facility in Missouri, and it didn't give the town that this was in. The residents, well, I should say some of the residents, began a Bible study. And naturally, somebody complained. An anonymous person complained. So they banned a Bible study in a senior living facility in Missouri. And yes, they are being sued over that. Their excuse is, we take federal funding, and so that's not allowed. Well, I bet if they had a drag show, it would be allowed. Nobody'd say a word about it. But because it was a Bible study, and it had been going on for several months. Okay, so it wasn't, unknown to anybody. They'd been getting together in a common area, and there was enough of them there that they began this Bible study. So we'll see where that goes. I really don't think that the facility management has any legal grounds to stand on there, because we have this thing in the United States called the Constitution. It guarantees us the right to assemble. It guarantees us the right to free speech, and it guarantees us that we can worship, really any God any way we want. It's that simple. So we'll see. If you're new here, yes, we do talk about all kinds of good things and bad things too. If you are new here, check out GiveGod90.com. There's all kinds of good stuff on there for you, including the books that are available, but you can't buy them from my website. You actually have to go either to I suggest a local bookstore and patronize them, and they will appreciate it. You'll have to order it because they probably don't carry it, but ask them for it. Either Tradition to Truth, God's Universe, God's Rules, or Inheriting Lies. All three are progressively more difficult levels of study. Put it that way. I had another good question this week. And, I like questions that make me think, okay? It was asking if competition is in the Bible, and if it's okay for Christians to compete, or would it be considered, could we consider that trying to be better than someone else, trying to better ourselves, trying to outdo someone? And once I gave them the answer, it made me really wonder how many other people out there might avoid competition for various reasons. So, I thought, to answer that question for everyone, and hopefully to everyone's satisfaction, I'll just go there today. Okay? Like you have a choice. Although if you do have the free Spreaker app, you can comment. I am looking at the chat a little bit as I have time. Excuse me. Conflict is different than competition. Conflict, by its very nature, destroys. It's that simple. It most often occurs when someone is trying to place their own desires above what everybody else might want. That's what breeds conflict. If we look back, we see the conflict between Jacob and Laban, for instance. It happened because Laban wanted his oldest daughter, Leah, to marry before the younger Rachel. Now Laban was thinking about his standing in the community because it was customary for the firstborn daughter to marry before the younger daughters. That was just something that was done. And Laban knew this, and even though Jacob and Rachel were, they had this thing going, well, Laban said, I can marry Leah to him without him knowing it. And that created a conflict, right? Laban was putting his self first. He wasn't thinking of his daughter. Now, yeah, he was thinking of Leah, but he was wanting to get her married off, right? What he was thinking about was his standing in the community. He said, boy, if I can get her married off, then it'll be okay, But that was Laban putting himself first. There's another conflict that happens a little later on, but this time that conflict was brought out of jealousy. Uh-oh. Yes, we're talking about the young David, who was this tall, handsome, famous person because he killed Goliath. And he had fame. But it was more than that fame that caused people to admire him. David basically had a good heart. Yes, he was tall, he was good looking. He could have done a lot of things. But David had a good heart. He was a shepherd. He knew how to care for his flock. And he applied that same concept to dealing with people. And because of that, people liked him. It's easy to like someone who has a good heart, right? We all have somebody that we know. They might be a terrific person. They might be very skilled at what they do, but they have a bad heart. And it's hard, no matter how much you want to like that person, it's hard to like them. And there are, the opposite is true too. There are people who have a really, really good heart and they're easy to like, but you don't really want to be around them that much because, well, various reasons. Maybe they're not that good at what they do. Maybe they're loud, or they have some personal traits that need some work on, right? Now, the people watched David, and he tried to please Saul. The problem is that Saul had forgotten how to be a shepherd to his people. He was a king. He had absolute power as a king. And as the saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But what finally, I can say it this way, what finally broke Saul's spirit is found in 1 Samuel 18:17. The women answered one another as they played and said, Saul hath slain thousands, and David 10,000s. And the next two verses actually display Saul's change, right? In verses 8 and 9, the women's song upset Saul, and he became very angry. He thought, the women say David killed 10,000, tens of thousands of enemies, but they say I only killed thousands of enemies. The only thing left for him is the kingdom. So Saul watched David closely. From then on, he was jealous of him. You know, this jealousy would actually lead to the destruction of Saul's life. It almost tore apart a kingdom. Saul allowed his self-centered emotions to ruin him. Think about that. How many times do we get ourselves, well, to put it, some of the folks in other nations might not understand this, but we have a saying. It puts us in a world of hurt, meaning we get ourselves into a lot of trouble. The weird thing today is that we use conflict as entertainment. You turn on just about any television show, and the story goes far past protagonist, antagonist, good guy and bad guy. The self-satisfying stir trouble with a worldview or an approach of, well, I'm better than everybody else. I should get things my way. That's not healthy. It's not, and I really don't enjoy watching entertainment like that. It's just, these shows about, housewives of Beverly Hills or whatever it is. These, some people call them reality shows, but they're actually scripted. There's no reality to them. These are folks who are just really, really good at displaying conflict. So let's look at competition, which is far different than conflict. When people compete against each other, what is the actual outcome other than somebody wins and somebody loses? Have you ever thought about that? In today's world, we don't often think, we think about a competition as, there's going to be winners and losers. But what's the better outcome? What's the one thing that we can look at in competition and say, this is more important than winning or losing? When people compete, and it really doesn't matter what their competing is. It doesn't matter what the competition is. It can be a board game like chess or checkers. It can be a ball game. For that matter, it could be a scavenger hunt, a child's game of hide and seek. It doesn't matter what the game is. Someone will always win because it's competition, right? But good competitors understand that to win, they need to be better themselves than they were the last time they competed. Think about the child's game of hide and seek. If the person who is hiding, picks a spot where, it's easy to find them, and the person who is seeking finds them quickly, well, the next time they hide, it needs to be better. so that the next time the person who is seeking, they need to be better. You see, it builds skills. It actually forces competitors to strive to be the best they're able to be. Now, we know that some people are given skills by our Creator to do certain things, right? Genesis 4, we see that verse 20, Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and raise livestock. That's a skill set. Verse 21, his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who play the harp and flute. Another skill set given by the Creator. Verse 22, Zillah gave birth to Tubal-Cain, a forger of every implement of bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. These people were given the skills they need for what purpose? To be better than everybody else? No. They were given the skills they need to benefit mankind. And there's nothing new under the sun, right? Today, some people are still working in metals. Some people are playing instruments. And believe it or not, competition helps us hone those skills so we can be better. You will never be a better chess player unless you compete with someone who is slightly better than you. Right? Because if you continually compete against people who don't play as well as you do, it makes you feel good. But are you learning anything from it? Are you building your skills? You can't be a better guitar player unless you play with people who are more experienced. It's just that simple. Something we've lost in the United States in this modern time is the actual art of apprenticeship. Taking someone who has a certain set of skills already given to them by the Creator, and then you help them build those skills so that they become better. They become the craftsman or the master of the trade or whatever they're doing. Now there's all types of competition among the trades as well. Something I'm kind of familiar with is rodeo. Been there, done that. This competition, it actually grew from the cowboys who would compete to see who was better at roping a steer, who was better at riding a horse. Lumberjack competitions, I like to watch because these guys are good. You're taking an old saw, an old two-man saw, and cutting a log in half as fast as you can. To me, I like to watch people use tools anyway, and when they use them in a way in competition, I'm a little weird. I enjoy that kind of thing. Believe it or not, in Japan, they take carpentry seriously. Okay? There's actually a competition in Japan to find the best person who can take a carpenter's plane and smooth out a piece of wood, who can sharpen that plane in such a way and use it in such a way that when they slide it down that piece of wood, that little sliver of wood comes up out of that plane and curls just right, and everything works just right. And often those slivers of wood are thinner than a piece of paper. And they're looking for the person who can do that the best. Because when they find him, when they find somebody that can do that, the absolute best, he can then train others to do the same thing. You see, each of these skills cause competitors to carefully use those skills to hone them. And a lot of times in competition, they will watch each other, and they'll see if they can pick up, those tricks of the trade, so to speak. Maybe if I tried doing this way, it might be better. And of course, the competitor, when you compete, is watching you going, well, maybe if I do this his way or her way, it'll be better. So it works both ways. You're actually building each other up where conflict tears people apart. There's when that happens, I'll go back to chess for a second. There are chess moves named after players who developed a certain style of play. Musicians kind of do the same thing. There are chord progressions and rhythms that are named after the people that developed them. Paul actually uses competition in a concept in his letter to the Corinthians. In 1 Corinthians 9:24, he writes, all those who compete in the games use strict training. They do this so they can win a crown. That crown is an earthly thing that lasts only a short time, but our crown will continue forever. Now, of course, Paul is saying, what you're doing here only lasts for a short time. But did you catch what else he said? All those who compete in the games use strict training. And that training builds the skills necessary for them to perform at their best ability. To be the best they can. That's what competition does. The trouble with the world today isn't due to competition, as some would suggest, but the trouble's really kind of twofold. We've turned competition into conflict, and then we attempt to place the competitors above everybody else. We put them up on this pedestal. Now, there used to be a saying, and I tried to find where this came from, and I can't find it. It was a book and then a movie. And the saying is, for the love of the game. If people today were playing for the love of the game, and it doesn't matter whether it's hide and seek or chess or football, soccer, baseball, cricket, it doesn't matter. If they were playing for the love of the game, they would be doing their best to improve the game. But what's really happening is people aren't playing to improve the game or, really to improve their skill or their talent. They're actually competing today to elevate themselves. They want prestige, they want glory, and they want money, right? Colleges today go out and recruit, people who can play sports because the college wants to draw in that sports crowd. And that actually takes the player away from the game and puts them on this self-centered, I'm going to be famous. And if I get famous and I'm good enough to go to the pros, then maybe I can get this advertising contract. They'll use my name and pay me millions of dollars so that they can put my name on their product. See, they're not playing for the game. They're playing for themselves, and that creates conflict. I looked at a passage that I use often because we have so much to learn from this. It's actually a transcript of a conversation in the throne room of heaven, and it comes from 1 Kings chapter 22. And Jehovah said, Who will entice Ahab to march up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one suggested this and another that. Then a spirit came forward, stood before Jehovah, and said, I will entice him. By what means? Asked Jehovah. The spirit replied, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouths of all his prophets. You will surely prevail, said Jehovah. Go and do it. Now the divine beings were asked by the Creator, who will entice Ahab? What can we do to get him to fail? Right? And each offered ideas. One suggested this, another that. It was this conversation, and if you can think of maybe a board meeting, right? And that's a terrible example when I'm comparing things to heaven. But, the president, CEO, the big guy, the head chief says, how can we accomplish this task? Well, in today's world, many times in many board meetings, this degrades into an argument because each one wants to do whatever it is their way, and they're not doing it for the same reason these divine beings, these spirits, were doing it. You see, the divine spirits in the throne room offered different ideas until one suggested the perfect solution. There was no conflict there. They all understood what was at stake, and they all wanted the same outcome. And that outcome was not to glorify themselves. That outcome was to glorify the Creator. Where a board meeting on earth today, everybody's out to make themselves look good. It's putting self above the final outcome. You want to know why so many places fail today? So many businesses fail? They're putting self above the outcome. The spirits in the throne room who were discussing how to entice Ahab were all of one accord, right? They all, this is a really bad analogy. They had a love of the game, so to speak, right? Kinda. They wanted nothing more than to see the Creator's plan succeed. That's their love of the Creator. That's their desire, is to see him honored, glorified, successful. And when he asks for something, they don't try to see who can come up with the best idea to glorify themselves. Instead, the concept, the thought, the love is to see the Creator and his plan succeed. We are given the breath of life so that we are able to communicate with each other, not to glorify ourselves, but to glorify and honor our Creator. That's exactly what the spirits were discussing in the throne room. How can we glorify Jehovah in the best way that we can come up with, in the best way we know how, to make sure that what he's asking for happens? Now, could he have simply spoken it? Yeah. He could have. But that's not the way he operates. it was in that meeting, it was all about carrying out the plan of the Creator that will result in the absolute best possible outcome. Not for themselves, but for the Almighty. And I've had conversations with others about, will there be any kind of conflict in the New Jerusalem? And they ask this because there is that passage in Revelation about leaves were for the healing of the nations. I highly doubt there will be conflict. There will be absolutely the opportunity for discussion, just like we witness in 1 Kings 22. But that discussion, it's going to be about how do we honor, how do we glorify the Almighty, doing the best we are able to do to honor the one who created us. After all, even in the New Jerusalem, on the new earth, it's still going to be his new universe. And the difference is, this time he's going to make sure that everybody there is willing to build each other up, not tear each other down. He's going to do his best to make sure that in that place, everyone will be the best we can possibly be, not for our own glory, but for the glory of the one who created us. And hopefully now you understand a little bit better the difference between conflict and competition. There is a difference. Competition builds up. Conflict breaks down. So until Thursday,